I feel like people don't talk about how scary it is to deconstruct. And not even deconstruct. It's like the deconstruction, I felt like I was just in shock the entire time. It's kind of like when you get in an accident. I got in a really bad accident a few years ago and I had to go to physical therapy and stuff, and all I remember is the Diet Coke can. All the Diet Coke was all over the car, all over my clothes, and I just remember looking down at the Diet Coke can and I was just in shock. And while the cops were there, they were asking me questions and I was just like not coherent. Like I wasn't able to respond. That's actually how I felt throughout my entire deconstruction. And it went on for about 2 straight years. And I feel like now that I'm starting to talk about it, it's like I'm finally coming out of some sort of a weird haze where I can actually talk. You know, in the New Age world, we talk about throat chakra. We talk about unblocking our throat chakra so that we can speak. I actually had a very strange phenomenon happen to me at the end of 2021, right when I was deconstructing. What happened was my throat closed up. Doctors call it globus sensation. It's, some say it's psychosomatic. It did not feel psychosomatic to me. I'll tell you that right now. I'll tell you what. Did not feel freaking psychosomatic when all I could eat was soup for like 4 straight months. Like, I never want to look at soup again. That's all I could eat, because basically what it is it's a sensation, globus sensation. It's a feeling in your throat that there's something stuck in it. I would take the tiniest bites of food and chew it for like a long time, and still when I swallowed, it felt like it was caught there. It was one of the scariest things I've ever gone through in my entire life. And I actually had this experience. I was in the car and I was sitting in a parking lot at the grocery store, and I was almost gonna like shout down this guy that was putting the carts away for help, because this very, very strange thing happened to me. I guess today I'm talking about physical symptoms. This really, really weird thing happened to me, and maybe it was just extremely high anxiety, but I felt like I had to go to the hospital, where I was passing out. Like, I could not breathe. I felt like somebody was choking me. And at the time, I truly felt it was demonic. At the time that it was happening to me, I felt that what was happening was because I was reading tarot. This is when I first started getting into tarot, November 2021. I was studying tarot. I was taking a course on it. I was learning all about it, watching tarot readings. I truly felt like, because I quote unquote opened a door to the devil, that these strange symptoms were happening to me. And I'm sure that all my Christian family and friends and people that used to support me back when I was a Christian minister, I'm sure they'd all be like, oh yeah, praise the Lord, exactly. At least she sees and she understands that that's what happened. She opened a door to the devil with those bad, terrible, bad pieces of paper. Those evil, wrong, terrible playing cards, right? And at the time, I had just gotten my first tarot deck. I went through this entire ritual where I slept with it under my pillow for 21 days, because that's what my first tarot teacher taught me to do. She walked us through the ritual to carry the cards with us where we went, and then to sleep with them under our pillow for 21 days and kind of to initiate the deck. So I was like, it was this whole real spiritual practice for me. And it was like very fulfilling. It felt very fulfilling to me, because I'm a very sentimental, symbolic person, and I really lacked a lot of that in the Christian church. Like, in the more prophetic side of things, I found that, people were more into ritual and People like Benny Johnson, who has recently passed away, and I loved her. She was Bill Johnson's wife. And I learned a lot about her like regarding what the New Age world would call like grid work, portals. She talked a lot about portals. She talked about how there are certain places on the planet that have like more power to them. And so anyways, I learned a lot about that sort of stuff from her. They would do like specific prophetic rituals, like, you know, I don't even know. I can't even think of an example, but just, you know, symbolism, like pouring out like water onto the land, things like that. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I read a few of her books. I was always desperately searching for information like that. The Christian church was so freaking boring to me. And I loved it with all my heart. I'm saying I was always looking for, I used to say to my dad, I'm looking for the real stuff. I said that like every single day. I'm like, I'm looking for the real stuff. I'm looking for the real stuff. And to me, the quote unquote real stuff was like the fun stuff, the interesting stuff, like the prophetic stuff, right? That's how I got involved in prophetic ministry to begin with, because I was looking for answers. It was actually the other way around for me. It wasn't like I was having experiences. I was having all of these paranormal, supernatural, angelic encounters with God, as Bethel terms it, all the time, every single day. So all the stuff that was happening to me, being transported to other dimensions, locations, having dreams, having all these angelic spiritual experiences, to the point where my entire body was shaking and it felt like I had a fever, couldn't move off the ground because it was so heavy, the weighty glory of God, the kabod glory as we call it in the charismatic church. All these spiritual experiences I was having every single day. So what happened to me is I went looking for answers. Like, I wasn't learning about this stuff and then praying and asking God to experience it. I was experiencing it, and then I was praying and asking God to help me, like, validate these experiences. And I couldn't find much in the Bible except in the Old Testament, the old prophets, right? Like Elijah, Elisha, all these crazy things, the wheel within the wheel and all that stuff, right? So I was always looking for answers, and I couldn't find much. You know, I read lots of books. I searched everywhere for it, and I would find a little piece here and a little piece there, you know, and I just felt like it was so fringe. Like, even in the charismatic world, I was fringe. Like, the fringiest of the fringe that it got, I felt like I was fringier. Remember that show Fringe years ago? Yeah, I felt like I was like fringe science or something. I always felt like I was the odd one out, the odd duck. Everybody looked at me like I was bizarre or weird, or they questioned my experiences. Even in the fringe of the church, I had a hard time kind of plugging in my experiences with other people's experiences in that same way. I've had a hard time finding... And it's probably just because it's, first of all, I'm sure people don't want to talk about it because it's taken me 2 freaking years to do this podcast, number one. Number two, I'm sure that it's like, you know, it's traumatizing. It's so traumatizing that I feel like we don't even know how traumatized we are. And I'm not trying to like point fingers at people and say, you're traumatized. You're acting happy, but you're not really happy. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. There are areas of my life where extreme pressure has been relieved, kind of like if you open up some sort of pressurized pipe or something and it all comes out. Like, in some areas of my life, I've felt that way, but in others, I felt terrified. You know, I have nightmares. I want to say every night, but I don't want people to diagnose me. So I'll refrain from that. But years ago, when I was in therapy consistently, my therapist had me on Ativan for nightmares. This was years ago now. And when I was on Ativan, bro, when I came down off of that medication, I tried to jump out of a moving car. I did things I never would have done in my freaking life. I was extremely, it was the darkest, like, coming down off of something that I've ever experienced. Same with Zoloft. And I know one is an antidepressant and one is an anti-anxiety. Ativan's the anti-anxiety and Zoloft is an antidepressant. I had visions in my head of all the different ways that I was going to unalive myself coming off of Zoloft. So for me personally, this is not a blanket statement. I think medication helps many, many, many people. But for me, it made my pre-existing symptoms worse, and I felt like I became more delusional. Could just be because I have every freaking planet in the 12th house except for my Mars in the 1st. So, Mars in the 1st with everything else in the freaking 12th, and then Moon in the 9th, yeah. Gonna have a interesting life. I found people looking at me like a deer in headlights since I was a child. And people talk about like indigo children and things like that, rainbow children. I find all that to be very fascinating. Star seeds, things like that. And, I don't deny any of those things, but at the same time, it's like, regardless whether we believe in that stuff or not, I've never felt like I've belonged here. And that's a big thing in Christianity. Like, the world is not my home. The world is not my home. The world is not my home. I took that idea and I almost wanted to get it tattooed on me. That's how much I resonated with that idea. I've spent the last 2 years studying astrology as well as tarot because a lot of my friends are astrologists now. And I love it. I love astrology. And, this is not like me megaphoning astrology. I'm just saying, like, if you are interested in kind of seeing things from a little bit of a different vantage point, even if you don't believe in it, even if you think it's woo-woo nonsense, it is an interesting study. Same with like Myers-Briggs and all this stuff. We take these personality tests, right? The Enneagram I've been interested in because I was turned on to that from Richard Rohr. Just as an example, like, not trying to recruit anybody, not going back to my evangelism days, don't worry. I'm just saying, Moon in the 9th house. Moon is about your emotions. Moon is about the kind of more hidden sides of yourself, like what you do, like dancing when nobody is looking, sort of a thing. And if your moon is in the 9th house, the 9th house is all about like religion, travel, searching for answers. It's a philosophical sort of a house. So it makes sense why my main focus in life has been religion and looking for answers. I mean, that's literally what my astrology shows. And then with, I'm not trying to read my freaking birth chart. I'm just saying, my sun is even in the 12th house, which is like who you are. And the 12th house talks about the subconscious, the paranormal, like seeing behind the veil. It's a Piscean energy. The 9th house is more of a Sagittarius energy. And then me having Mars, which is your action, which is like where your power comes from. My Mars is in the 1st house, and the 1st house talks about like your expression of the self, like you in the world. So it's like taking those kind of paranormal, spiritual, religious, philosophical themes, and then in my Mars in the 1st, expressing those themes since I was a child. It makes sense. And then you talk about my midheaven is in Gemini. If you know a Gemini, you know a Gemini can talk. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, I remember like a year ago, somebody said, don't share your birth chart online because you don't know what people can do with that information. I feel like people can destroy me from like multiple angles. That's why at this point, I'm just like, look in my closet, check my records. I got nothing to hide. I've been through so much shit that literally the worst somebody can do to me is just like a regular Tuesday to me at this point. So that's why I just like share my birth chart online, because I want people to be able to learn easily. So anyways, I said all of that to say, if you're a little bit interested in astrology, it's not as woo-woo as you think. It's not pop psychology, astrology. Well, there's pop psychology as well. It's all the buzzwords: narcissistic abuse, narcissism. If you want to know real narcissism, you don't know real narcissism. No offense. Not saying it to you guys, just saying the pop psychology. People talk about narcissists. They have no effing idea what true narcissism is. And my God, like, if anything is a narcissist, it's the modern Christian faith. But that's for another episode. I keep looking over because I got to watch my time. My camera only records for 10 minutes, so I had to keep getting up. But why was I saying all that? I was saying all that because, first of all, if you're interested in looking a little bit deeper at your own self, people say that your birth chart is like a map of the soul. Like, if you want to look a little bit deeper into maybe why you are the way you are, basically. So that's my spiel on astrology. Now, let's cycle back around. What am I even saying? I guess I'm kind of just talking about the fact that that's why I'm holding this dog. I'm holding my dog Butter, the Beanie Baby. I used to have a big version. Remember years ago they had the big Beanie Babies? I had this exact dog as a big Beanie Baby when I was a kid. And so a few years ago during the pandemic, I felt really scared in life. So I literally looked up, I think I got this from eBay or Amazon. I tried to find that dog and I couldn't find the big one, but I've had this one for a few years now. And so that's why I'm like literally holding a dog, because this stuff makes me that it's all so freaky. There have honestly been moments that I've just felt so scared, and I'm not really a scared type of person. Like, I know everybody gets scared from time to time, but what I'm trying to say is, like, I've overcome so much in my life. I've gone through so many things, and I've never been rocked like I've been rocked. Not in a sexy way, let me tell you, in the past couple years. I know, and speaking of astrology, whether you believe in it or not, astrologists speak, and I've learned a lot about this in the past couple years, understanding the transits. So that's basically when the planets are moving, right? Everything's always moving. Everything's always in motion. That's why people say, time doesn't stop, quote unquote time. Things are always moving. That's when we have these transits. We also have the lunar cycles. You'll hear somebody say, oh, we have a full moon in Capricorn. We just had a full moon in Capricorn. That was our most recent, as an example. Now, whether you believe in it or not, according to astrologists, some of the things that are happening, like we have Pluto in Aquarius coming up, and it's going to be a 20-year transit. It's going to change the face of this planet. Pluto is a planet of change. Pluto is a transformative energy. Anything that comes in its path will be changed. Anything. So I believe, even though I didn't know about astrology, I have been quote unquote prophesying this stuff for over 10 years. Talking about how the next 20 years, the world is going to be a different place. Everything is going to be different. Our technology is going to advance to the point where things that we have today will be unrecognizable to where they're going to be in 20 years. Talking about the metaverse, the financial system, talking about advanced technologies. Who's that guy, Lex Friedman? Yeah, I like his podcast. Anyways, I had no idea what astrology even was about. All I knew was that I was a Virgo sun, and I saw my horoscope on Facebook. That's all I knew. I had no idea what anything else was with astrology. Never seen a birth chart in my life. Didn't know what an aspect was. Never heard about any of this stuff. No clue. The reason why I'm saying that going through the deconstruction is so scary, and then the post deconstruction I would say is even scarier. That's why I started off with like the car accident example. It's like I was in shock for 2 straight years during the deconstruction process itself. When I have started to come back to my senses, started to kind of actualize, or what is the right word here? Assimilate all of the new kind of things that have been happening behind the scenes. Now that I'm becoming more like, hello, I'm here, I'm present in the real world, I'm like, oh my God. And this is what I was going to say about astrology. Astrology, I believe, is like looking at reality from one angle. Christianity, looking at reality from another angle. Different schools of thought. Like, take science from one angle, etc., etc., etc. What has happened to me, if I were to sum it up, is I have zoomed outside of all of these kind of aspects, right? Looking at reality like a birth chart, for example, in astrology. Looking at reality as a birth chart and zooming out from that and looking down on the entire thing and seeing that these are all just different viewpoints on how to explain what we're experiencing as our reality as human beings. It's like, I feel what happened to me. I don't know if I was abducted by aliens or what. And I'm actually not kidding about that. I love to be making a joke, but I actually feel like something truly has happened to me. I've been born again, praise the Lord. Been baptized by the blood of the Lamb. Or initiated by an alien race. I'm not sure, either way. My point is that it's like I zoomed out and I was able to just see all of these different groups and different schools of thought from a higher perspective. Not saying I'm above it or I'm better than it or I see things so much higher than everybody else. But I'm not talking about any of that bullshit. I'm talking about I saw a glimpse of something. And it was scary. This is my point. This isn't fun for me. This isn't like, wow, this is amazing. Everything's so new and fresh. I literally wake up in a cold sweat almost every mother effing night with the downloads, to use a new age term, that I have been receiving on the reality of life. This stuff has yes, it's changed my paradigm. Yes, I have to escape the matrix and all this stuff that people use, right? It's like, it's all just a freaking allegory anyway. What I'm trying to say is it has scared me to my core. I don't like this. I like to be the leader. I like to be the minister that has the answers and are teaching people about the answers, right? Yes, that's the position I'm comfortable in. But no, now the position that I'm in is laying on my couch, holding a Beanie Baby dog, telling you about the fact that I wake up in a cold sweat every single night. Possibly even considering the fact that I was probably abducted by aliens at some point, since I've had lots of strange experiences. This is my current viewpoint. Let's just take the alien example. Okay, whether it really was aliens or not. I went up with the aliens. We zoomed out from the human experience, the systems, the religions, the schools of thought, the current science of the day, the technology, which to these ETs is laughable. It is slow. I heard Dolores Cannon talk about the fact that I do agree with what Dolores Cannon speaks on. Quite a few of her points I do agree with. Not all, but some. She had many sessions of hypnosis through the years. She's a hypnotherapist. She had many experiences of essentially higher intelligence beings channeling through a person who is under hypnosis. Whether you believe in it or not, it is what it is. I'm just going to say it because this is the research that I have done. I've listened to many, many hours of Dolores Cannon talking about these experiences. Supposedly, a man channeled Nostradamus. She has an entire, I think it might even be like a 3-book series. It's a couple books of her talking about Jesus and the Essenes, who were supposedly, this group, the Essenes, was supposedly like a secret society that Jesus was connected with. And anyways, very interesting work, whether you believe in it or not. At the very least, it's interesting. You know what I'm saying? Same with astrology. You believe it, you don't, doesn't really matter. Just an interesting thing to look at, to consider, since we weren't able to consider anything for some of us for our entire lives. So back to the alien experience here. So I'm up there with the ETs, and we're looking down on the very low level human existence. Beyond the Schumann resonance of the earth, we're looking down upon the earth, and I'm like, oh my God. That was like, I don't even have words. I don't know what happened to me exactly, guys. I just know that I saw beyond religion. This is what I believe, because I like astrology. I definitely do, and I personally do agree with it. But this is what I want to say. It's a modality, and that is my perspective. Same with religion, same with even science. And I'm sure people are going to be like, oh, science is... Okay, yes. I'm not saying I was raised with New Earth creationism, or Young Earth creationism, excuse me, regardless. I was raised with the fact that this earth is like 10,000 years old. It was in my Abeka homeschool science books. Okay, so I was raised as kind of a fool. So it's taken that's also been a big blow to my ego during the deconstruction, to realize that I actually knew nothing about science, that much of what I was taught was just complete Christian bunk. Okay? Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that our highest minds of this planet, I feel, are only a fraction of the true wisdom and high level intelligence that actually exists. So I'm to the point where I just have devoted myself to live the rest of my life just on the hunt, you know? The way that I see it, my current point of view, is that there's truth in everything. There's also lies in everything. So it's about deciphering. It's about extracting the gold, as one of my mentors, Ken, speaks about. It's like about extracting the truth. And I'm on the search for truth. I'm on the search for universal wisdom, right? And I believe it's everywhere. And so that's where I stand currently. But I stand shaking with my research. And one would say that's what the ancient prophets were speaking about when they would shake under the glory of God, quote unquote God, right? Maybe I'm shaking under the glory of God now, understanding the vastness of what really exists. I believe that I am more of a believer, quote unquote, now than I ever was as a Christian. So that's what I got today. Thank you for being here on another episode of Deconstruction Therapy. If you'd like to support the channel, you can purchase merch through my Etsy shop, links in the description, or you can donate, links down in the description as well. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about this episode in the comment section. You can also email me. My email is in the description of this video. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hello. Watch me on YouTube if you'd like. If you guys are interested in my tarot stuff, I also have a tarot channel under The Metamystic, just The Metamystic. Also on TikTok and Instagram under that name as well. So much love, my friends. It's been Missy Gordon, The Metamysticshow. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you next time. Take care.